King Charles has put out an Easter message, and once again, I'm afraid it has been a fairly poorly thought through attempt to push the multicultural agenda. Yes, this is talk, and it is, well, we're going into Good Friday, which is an incredibly important day for most Christians, well, all Christians, I guess, and all people who respect Easter. Now, I just want to be really, really clear. I've said before today, I'm a Catholic. Clearly, this is a Church of England country. We have an established church. When it comes to Ramadan,
has King Charles just undermined the very foundation of British Christianity? His Easter message included references to Islam and Judaism, sparking outrage from traditionalists who believe he's diluting his role as defender of the faith. While monarchs before him maintained strict religious boundaries, Charles seems determined to rewrite the royal rulebook.
And I have to say, when it comes to Diwali, when it comes to Eid, the king and political leaders don't put out a message saying Eid is particularly relevant to Christians, because it isn't. The lights in Oxford Street should be Easter lights or lights for Lent. I'm afraid whatever is Christian should take priority. It is not sensible to put out a message for Jews and Muslims at Easter. And that's not to be rude to my Muslim friends. But anyway, I'm not the expert on this.
With public Eid celebrations and Ramadan fast breaking at Windsor Castle, is this progressive inclusion or a dangerous dismantling of Britain's Christian identity? The answer might be more troubling than you think. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favour. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So did you click the subscribe button? Great. Thank you so much. Now back to the video. When Henry VIII received the title Defender of the Faith in 1521, he couldn't have imagined how this role would evolve 5 centuries later. For generations, British monarchs have worn this title as a badge of honour, signifying their solemn duty to protect and promote the Church of England.
Yes, you said it was poorly thought through. I think what you mean, it was badly done. It was actually clearly thought through. They know exactly what they're doing. This is part of King Charles's multi-faith relativistic agenda.
It was straightforward. The monarch stood as Christianity's champion in Britain, maintaining clear boundaries between faiths and reinforcing the nation's Christian identity. Fast forward to 2023, and King Charles seems to be rewriting this centuries-old playbook. What happens when the Supreme Governor of the Church of England begins hosting iftar dinners at Windsor Castle? It's a question that has royal watchers, religious leaders, and everyday Britons scratching their heads. The King's interfaith initiatives have taken many forms, but perhaps none more striking than his decision to open the hallowed halls of Windsor Castle, a symbol of British monarchy for nearly a millennium, for an iftar during Ramadan. Over 360 Muslim guests broke their fast within the historic state apartments, a setting previously reserved for the most traditional of royal ceremonies. This unprecedented event marked a dramatic departure from how previous monarchs interpreted their religious responsibilities. This wasn't an isolated gesture. The king has issued public Eid greetings with enthusiasm that some traditionalists find bewildering, coming from Britain's most visible Christian figurehead. These actions represent more than mere politeness. They signal a deliberate shift in how the monarchy positions itself in relation to Britain's diverse religious landscape. Royal historian Alexander Lehman didn't mince words when criticising Charles' approach, particularly regarding the Easter message that referenced other faiths. Lehman's assessment was blunt. Easter is not the appropriate time or place for it. His criticism highlights the fundamental tension between Charles's apparent vision of inclusive religious leadership and the traditional expectations of his role. The controversy stems not just from what Charles is doing, but when and how he's doing it. By incorporating interfaith messaging during Christianity's most sacred holiday, the king crossed a line that many traditionalists see as inviolable. Easter, after all, celebrates the cornerstone of Christian faith, Christ's resurrection. For many, including prominent religious scholars, this was not the moment to dilute the Christian message with references to other faiths. This tension is inherently constitutional. As Supreme Governor of the Church of England, the monarch occupies a uniquely challenging position. How does one simultaneously uphold Christian doctrine while embracing the multi-faith reality of modern Britain. It's a tightrope Charles seems determined to walk, despite the absence of a clear precedent from his predecessors. In his Easter message, the king shocked many by referencing Islamic teachings alongside Christian ones, even drawing parallels between aspects of the two faiths during Christianity's most holy celebration. He spoke of common values and shared spiritual principles, suggesting that the messages of Easter could resonate with those outside the Christian faith. While seemingly benign on the surface, these comments represented a significant break from tradition, where Easter messages typically focused exclusively on Christian themes and biblical references. The inclusion of Jewish traditions in the same message further complicated matters. By weaving together references to three Abrahamic faiths during a distinctly Christian observance, Charles effectively blurred religious boundaries his predecessors had maintained for centuries. Critics argue this approach doesn't reflect religious harmony, but religious confusion, a watering down of distinct traditions that ultimately serves none of them well. The question looming over these controversies is profound. Are we witnessing a fundamental redefinition of what it means to be defender of the faith in 21st century Britain? Charles has previously suggested he might prefer to be known as defender of faith, without the definite article, indicating a more pluralistic interpretation of his religious responsibilities. His recent actions seem to confirm this shift in thinking, raising concerns about the monarchy's commitment to its traditional Christian foundations. For critics, these interfaith gestures represent more than well-meaning inclusivity. They signal an erosion of Britain's Christian identity at the hands of its supposed defender. They argue that by diluting Easter's distinctly Christian message with references to Islam and Judaism, Charles has undermined his primary responsibility to the Church of England, and, by extension, to Britain's Christian heritage. Supporters counter that Charles is simply acknowledging the reality of modern Britain, a multi-faith society where the monarchy must evolve to remain relevant. They view his actions not as abandonment of tradition, but as thoughtful adaptation to changing times. So where do we go from here? The ongoing debate about King Charles' approach to faith isn't merely about royal protocol, it's about who we are as a nation. This tension between tradition and inclusivity forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about British identity itself. Are we clinging to nostalgic visions of our past, or embracing a more complex future? Each new interfaith gesture from Windsor Castle sends ripples through our cultural landscape. The monarchy has always evolved, but rarely at this pace or in this direction. Perhaps what truly matters isn't the king's personal religious views, but rather what we, as citizens, believe our institutions should represent in an increasingly diverse Britain.